You listen to me. You're Nick fucking... Whoa, Cage!
Nicolas Cage is his own movie genre, part national treasure, part vampire, part obsessive collector, and a full-time meme. Nicolas Cage is a man who has lived 1,000 lives. He ruled the 90s with romantic comedies and blockbuster action films, then crashed and burned, making flop after flop. And while for most movie stars these kinds of failures would end a career, for Nic Cage, he didn't go away, he got bigger. So it's time to witness the trials and triumphs of a man who danced with the shadows, flirted with obscurity, and emerged as a true cinematic icon. It's time to unlock the cage of Nicolas Cage. From the time Nicolas Cage was a child, he knew he was different. Where everyone zigs, Nic Cage zags. His father August was a brilliant, distinguished literature professor and great academic mind, but he found young Nicolas so quirky that he told his son he was actually an alien, and for many years, Nick believed it. He related to Kal-El, a boy outcasted from the planet Kryptonite, who came to Earth with special powers and who would one day become Superman. It wasn't until Nick's pediatrician assured him that he was normal with human skin and bones that he finally accepted the truth. His mother Joy was a choreographer who suffered from severe mental illness and was institutionalized for most of his childhood. As a result, Nicolas grew up with his father and brothers, reading classic novels, watching old movies, and becoming an encyclopedia for all the unique characters in the world of arts and literature, something he drew on in all his roles. Nick was also born into Hollywood royalty, with the last name Coppola. When he was 8 years old, his uncle, Francis Ford Coppola, released The Godfather. And when he was 12, his aunt, Talia Shire, played Adrian in the movie Rocky. At 15, while attending Beverly Hills High School, he worked in a movie theater, mesmerized watching his heroes on screen like Elvis and especially James Dean. He didn't want to act like them. He wanted to be them, dress like them, live like them. Nick said that James Dean committed so much to his performance in East of Eden that it taught him the true power of film performance if you fully, completely surrender to your character. Soon after, Nicolas mustered up the nerve to approach his uncle Francis, asking him to give him a screen test. He said, "I'll show you acting." Kind of a ballsy move considering his uncle had already directed the likes of Brando, Pacino, and De Niro. But Nicolas Cage believed in his talents and felt that he was destined for greatness. Nicolas Coppola's first movie was such a small role that his character didn't even have a name. It was in the classic teen comedy Fast Times at Ridgemont High. On set, he was irked by the other actors, who quoted Godfather and Rocky movie lines at him due to his last name. They called Nick a member of the Lucky Sperm Club. Determined to avoid the appearance of nepotism, he changed his last name from Coppola to Cage. Inspired by the superhero Luke Cage, someone with a punk rock energy who was unpredictable and a little scary. Yet, though he was no longer a Coppola, ultimately, it was still his uncle Francis who helped launch his career. Though Nic Cage did land a lead role in Valley Girl as a burnout teenager, Francis Ford Coppola cast him in 3 movies: Peggy Sue Got Married, The Cotton Club, and Rumblefish, which gave Nick a solid acting resume. Ironically, his uncle didn't give him a role in his biggest teenage drama, The Outsiders, casting Matt Dillon instead. Still, it was enough for Nick to get hired by major directors like the Coen brothers for Raising Arizona, Norman Jewison for Moonstruck, which won Cher an Oscar, and with the eccentric director David Lynch for Wild at Heart, where Nick finally got to channel his inner Elvis on screen. Lynch called Cage a jazz musician of American acting. As a performer, Nic Cage describes his style as operatic acting. In all his films, there were moments of hypnotically intense acting that seemed to always stand out like a sore thumb or a sore hand.
I lost my hand! I lost my bride! Johnny has his hand! Johnny has his bride! You want me to take my heartbreak, put it away, and forget?
In '89, Cage took the lead in the darkly funny film A Vampire's Kiss. He played a guy smitten by a bloodsucker and gradually is convinced he's one too. Though the movie tanked at the box office, it became a cult hit, thanks to Cage's mind-bending, exaggerated acting that would one day turn him into the internet's biggest memes. At one point, Nic asked to have hot yogurt poured over his toes to get excited during a love scene with Jennifer Beals. His co-stars admired his audacious flair, but others were taken aback by his peculiar choices, labeling it as an over-the-top descent into extravagance and theatricality. Cage worked non-stop through the 90s, always delivering a solid performance as a romantic lead, a cop, a Secret Service agent, and he was one of those actors earning over $1 million a film. But, true to form, when everyone zigs, Nic Cage zags. In 1995, Cage turned down leading Hollywood roles for a small indie film about an alcoholic screenwriter, a man who is deeply wounded and trying to find meaning before he dies in Leaving Las Vegas. The film would earn him an Oscar for Best Actor, and he credited his success to having a drinking coach on set, basically a drunk man who could help him slur his words and act like an alcoholic. In fact, throughout Nic Cage's career, his unusual preparation for a role would become part of his story. In the second half of the 90s, now a critically acclaimed actor, Cage zagged again. Instead of accepting meaty, award-winning caliber roles, he became an action star. With back-to-back major box office blockbusters like The Rock, Con Air, and Face Off, Nicolas Cage was the rare combination of bankable A-list star who also had an Oscar, and it made him one of Hollywood's highest-paid actors. He was earning $40 million a year. His roles embodied the nerdy everyman, possessing a graceful and agile physique. His nerdy charm and spontaneous improvisation was a delightful alternative to the brawny action stars. And in all of this, Nic Cage never backed away from his intensity in his performances, always turning inward to find his anger to use on screen. But what anger? On the outside, it looked like Nic Cage had everything: money, fame, awards. But on the inside, he was missing something. In interviews, Nicolas Cage says that he fights his thoughts and dreams, and has issues controlling his anger, having been arrested for domestic violence and disturbing the peace. In 2011, after being jailed in New Orleans over an alleged outburst against his wife, the police, and a few parked cars, he was bailed out by celebrity bounty hunter and reality TV star Dwayne "Dog" Chapman. And it's this internal drama that he throws into his performances, as well as his never-ending need to seek out and covet. Now extremely wealthy, he went on the world's oddest shopping spree. While some people may splurge on a second home, Nic Cage bought 15 houses, including castles in Germany, England, and Ireland, and a deserted island in the Bahamas, and a haunted house in New Orleans. But it didn't stop there. His obsession with collecting also went into overdrive with 22 cars, 9 of which were Rolls-Royces, and he also went on to covet 12 major pieces of rare expensive jewelry, 47 works of art, a Gulfstream jet, yachts, a rare Superman comic entitled Action Comics #1, a dinosaur skull, a two-headed snake named Harvey Dent, a talking African crow named Hugin, 2 cobras named Moby and Sheba, an octopus, and a black dragon lizard. And it still wasn't enough. At one point, he embarked on a journey to find the lost Holy Grail, but some say his most coveted object of all was Elvis's daughter. Nicolas Cage began dating Elvis's only daughter, Lisa Marie, eventually marrying in 2002, but it wouldn't last long, separating less than 4 months later. In addition to Lisa Marie Presley, Cage has also been married 4 other times, including to actress Patricia Arquette. He can be an intense person to live with. His marriage to Erica Koki only lasted 4 days. In 2021, he married Riko Shibata, and they have a daughter, August, making Nicolas Cage now the father of 3, including his oldest sons, Weston and Kal-El, which is Superman's original alien name, fitting for the boy who grew up thinking he's from another planet. But failed marriages weren't the only troubles in his life. Over the decade of the 2000s, with the exception of a few hits here and there, Nicolas Cage's acting career took a nosedive after a string of failures, back to back to back. His multi-million-dollar paychecks dwindled until he was told by his business manager that he had blown through his entire fortune. And add to that, in 2009, the IRS came after him with a federal tax lien for failure to pay $6 million in back taxes. It turned out that his business manager failed to pay, and Cage ultimately sued him for negligence, resulting in catastrophic losses. There are so many classic movies that Nic Cage was almost a part of. One can't help but wonder what it would have been like if he played Superman in Tim Burton's reboot, or Nero in The Matrix instead of Keanu Reeves, or a role in Lord of the Rings, or the Green Goblin in Spider-Man, or even as a wrestler in place of Mickey Rourke in Darren Aronofsky's film The Wrestler. Missing these big roles and needing to work as a result of his spending, bad investments, and tax bills, Nic Cage was forced to take anything he could land, 3 to 4 movies a year. His filmography runs the gamut of critical acclaim like National Treasure to downright awful schlock movies. But to his credit, no matter how lowbrow the film, Nic Cage never phoned it in. In every one of his movies, there's a moment of complete out-of-the-box intensity that shows how much he commits his full being into every role he takes. It's safe to say that on everyone's list of favorite movies, there's a Nic Cage movie. And on everyone's list of least favorite movies, there's also a Nic Cage movie. Critic Roger Ebert said, "He's good in good movies and essential in bad ones." His Johnny Blaze in Ghost Rider was widely panned, but it was the lengths he went to prepare that have to be commended. Cage used what he calls nouveau shamanism, in which he mixed African Caribbean techniques and sewed thousand-year-old Egyptian artifacts into his clothing. He also painted his face white and black like a voodoo priest. All of this was meant to trick him into thinking he's a character from another dimension with special powers. And mind you, this was all just preparation for the role. Simultaneously, the internet, particularly meme and GIF culture, began to both undermine and bolster Cage's unique brand of stardom. Fan edits and YouTube mashups eventually became a source of great frustration for Cage, as he struggled to assure fans and critics he was a serious performer. However, his career choices and statements about his craft didn't always support this notion. Sean Penn, his contemporary and former rival, mockingly referred to him as a performer. On the other hand, Cage playfully labeled himself as a thespian, a troubadour who entertains the masses. But irregardless, needing to keep a cash flow, for 10 years Nicolas Cage starred in dozens of direct-to-video movies. So while much of the movie-going public didn't see Nicolas Cage on screen, in reality he was working overtime on campy and schlock movies that played internationally, and it made him an international superstar and global cult figure. His fans connected to him in a way that they felt they knew him. Countless times he had crazed fans stalking him, one breaking into his house and watching him sleep while eating a fudgesicle, naked. It's a huge relief that Cage has made a triumphant comeback in the past 5 years. In 2018, his career took a stunning turn when he portrayed a grieving lover who transforms into an avenging angel in the film Mandy. Cage sits alone in a brightly lit bathroom, guzzling a bottle of vodka while unleashing a torrent of moans, mumbles, and screams filled with fear. It's this epic display of Cage rage that he's famously known for. In 2020, he played a silent janitor in Willy's Wonderland in a demonically possessed funhouse. But the real gem is Pig. Here, Cage portrays a grieving chef who escapes to the Oregon wilderness, accompanied only by a truffle-hunting pig. And even if you don't see Nic's face on screen, it's possible you've heard his voice, as he's gone on to voice animated characters such as Superman in Teen Titans Go, Spider-Man in Into the Spider-Verse, as well as the hit Crude movies, and even as a guinea pig in G-Force. And even in the last year, his unbearable weight of massive talent has him going meta, playing an actor named Nicolas Cage, who immerses himself completely in his roles, blending eccentricities with method acting. It's not the first time he's acted with himself, once playing his own twin in Adaptation. And he even recently went back to his vampire roots in Renfield. And even in death, Nic Cage is preparing for the unconventional. He's already purchased a 9-foot pyramid-shaped grave in New Orleans' oldest cemetery, which waits for his remains, as Nic Cage prepares to be a legend, even in death. In 2022, Nic Cage announced that all his work was worth it. He was finally out of debt. Nic Cage is the man we all meme over, but his real life lives up to the hype. Whether he's spending all his money on magic artifacts, doing mushrooms with his cat Merlin, getting arrested, or having adventures at sea, I can't wait to see what he does next. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. And if you want to see a video of another wild and crazy guy, check out this video on the life of Steve Martin that you can watch right now. I'll see you in the next one.